Good morning. What is,
Indeed, it is.
yes.
I love the intro, by the way. So shout out to Mo at Brain Dagger Films. That's fan. I had the chills when I was watching it. I could feel the magic in it. I love it.
Yeah, it's actually super. I was like, oh man, I've watched some of his stuff on his YouTube for sure,
Mhm.
but I'm like, man, giving someone complete creative freedom, and then I'm like, am I gonna like it? Is this gonna be cool? Like, I don't really know him too well, but it's just perfect. Yeah, I love everything about it, and it's something I would have never thought of, but I feel is super fitting. So
Mo's magic. He's very talented. Did you watch the videos that are on the Moshi website? He made 2 of them on there. I don't know if those are on his YouTube or not, but on the Moshi website, he made 2 short films. They might be on his YouTube, but they're on the Moshi website as well.
I'll have to check it out because I'm not 100%. But yeah, it's super. It is such a beautiful thing, and that's like, yeah, I met you through Moshi, and it's just like there's so many different pieces of the pie, and everyone has their own gifts, and it's so cool to collaborate and bounce ideas off people and see, where things go. Like I commend you a lot because I love how honed in on your practice you are, and how much like I'll say like how less fucks you give about you just like have your mission and you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is super inspirational for me. And it really helps me hone on my practice, and I'll say get on myself in like a loving way to really level up, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Discipline. Yeah. I feel like that's one of my primary kind of good gifts is I can help people to discover. This is something that I've always been able to do pre-shaman time. I've been always good at helping people discover that they can do way more than what they think they can. They can do so much more. And that's always kind of been a driving force to me. And I'm just kind of a disciplined person in certain ways. And I've always been that way. And so for my practice, it's not that I always want to do it all the time, but the thing is, it's discipline. I know that it has to happen, and it's contingent upon my spiritual health and everything that happens around me. So thank you so much. I'm always happy to hear that in some way that I can inspire someone to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you've made a life of it from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
Would you care to kind of dive in on like what got you into shamanism? I mean, you're from Ohio, and like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's not the normal shaman breeding ground, or in the past it wasn't. Maybe the times are changing and people are popping up everywhere, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the great remembering is what it's called in our tradition. Like we say, more awakening up here in the Western world. But the thing is we are creation itself already, and it's just we're remembering. It's like we've had amnesia, and we're starting to remember. How did I get on this path? Well, I didn't look for it; it found me. That's kind of how it happened. I have a pretty long story. It started my first awarenesses of spirit started at about my memory of it begins at about 3.5, about 3.5 in a playroom in my basement of a house we lived in when I was a child. And I started to have communication with paintings or like pictures that were on the wall in my playroom in the basement. So they were pictures actually of like Sesame Street characters. So there was Bert and Ernie, there was Cookie Monster, and there was Big Bird. Well, the first one to talk to me was Big Bird. And so it was just a spirit talking to me through this medium. Like, so as a child, I couldn't understand anything else. And that's something I understand now. When we see spirits, it's actually our concept mind makes it into a figure it can understand and have a relationship with. Well, I felt really comfortable with my Sesame Street friends. So, that was a medium in which spirit started to communicate to me. And they would tell me wonderful things. Like they'd like encourage me and, tell me the things I was drawing or making were really beautiful, or I would play with them. There's like just a beautiful, playful kind of interaction. And That went on for quite a while. And then I mentioned it to my mother one day, and she just kind of went along with it. It was, oh, that's cute. You have imaginary friends and all these things. I was like, yeah. So that I didn't think it was a big deal. She was not really saying anything. But as that continued, um, I told her, I kept telling her about it. And then she became aware like I was really being serious, like I was actually having these encounters. My mother, she had like a lot of religious conditioning and everything, and, didn't understand spirituality, just kind of what was, thrust upon her through, religious kinds of ideas. And so it made her afraid. And she said to me, those are demons. Don't talk to them. Don't do that. That's bad. Scared the shit out of me, actually. Scared the crap out of me. Like, so that was something I had to heal as I came into my shamanhood, was healing some, because, when you're 3, you're in a theta brainwave rate and you download everything. You're awake to everything's happening. It's like hypnosis. And that created a subconscious separation for me my whole life, where when I would have intermittent spiritual experiences where I would question it, like, is this bad kind of thing? But that's kind of where it started. But I would say my whole life I've had all kinds of awareness and intuition, but things I would just ignore. I would just ignore it because I didn't understand it. I didn't grow up around other shamans or spiritual people. I wasn't even around like which people that have any awareness of the metaphysical at all. That wasn't around me. So I just kind of kept things to myself most of the time, but my friends would notice. They would ask me, how do you know that? And things like that. I've always kind of been like the wisdom keeper of my tribe growing up. I was always the guy people would come to and ask me questions and stuff. And they would call me the walking pool of useless knowledge, because all information that, just in insane kinds of very intricate awarenesses I could have from, pretty much my whole life. And, that all that stuff led to me into addiction, is where that led me to, and feeling really alone most of my life. Like, that's how I felt. I felt just really different from everyone else, and felt like I could never be myself. Like I didn't even know who I was. Like I had no idea what none of that stuff was. And that just led me down, like, the average kind of path of the human mind, like seek the American dream kind of thing. And that's kind of where I went. Like I had this idea, the way I was programmed as a child. I had parents that were in lack mindsets, and their teaching to me was that if you make a lot of money, that's when you're going to be happy. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to follow that imprint. I'm going to follow that idea. So I began, I started off as a heating and air conditioning contractor. I started off as an apprentice in that very early, when I was about 17 and a half years old. I got early graduation to go into an apprenticeship to become an HVAC installer. And that was really amazing. I caught on to that really fast. And within just a short period of time, they had me running jobs and all kinds of things. And again, I ended up in like a leadership kind of role where they had me training other people. So for like 20 years, that's what I did, is I trained other people how to install air conditioning and ductwork and all kinds of stuff like that. I also became a personal trainer. I helped people with their body and stuff like that. I didn't really understand much about mindset yet. I did understand about how the body worked. I was always into like science and health, and those are things that are always like really beautiful to me in different kinds of ways. But I did that. I started my own business. That went really well. I made a whole bunch of money, but I was still miserable. I still didn't know who I was. I still couldn't feel. I was cut off from the feeling. Like I couldn't really feel the world or feel my life. So in our tradition, that's kind of explained as the 3 levels of being: the mind, the body, and the heart. So I was cut off from my heart due to like my childhood. There was a lot of childhood kind of trauma and things like that. Not things I look at as bad now. They're all necessary things to get me here. But that led me into like a pretty deep depression in a way, because here I am. I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve. I'm everywhere I want to be, yet it's not enough. That was a big issue for me. And I just couldn't really understand that. And I just kind of just kept going along with my life. But that all kind of started to build itself up and led to me having severe illnesses, like pretty much my whole life. I feel like I was born with like respiratory illness. Like since I can remember, I've had earaches and all kinds of things. It took my tonsils out, lymph nodes out, all kinds of things when I was a kid. So like my whole life, I was battling with this kind of respiratory issue. And why? That's where the energy blockage is, in my heart. in this area. So, and I was holding on to a lot of grief and anger and rage and disappointment and so many really heavy kinds of emotions that I was really unaware of because they were trapped in the subconscious. And I kind of just moved into a mindset like, well, that's how it is. This is my life made me this way. It's kind of how my mindset was.
Mm-hmm.
And that just led me into really deep issues. And then that manifested itself in 2011. I just started having a really hard time breathing and stuff. I was winded, just walking. Like it was hard. Things were getting harder. And I was pretty young still. I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So I went to the doctor, to the typical sick care system, and they diagnosed me with COPD emphysema. And I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, what's this mean? This means it's a degenerative disease. And as you go along your journey, it's going to get harder and harder to breathe. And eventually something else will happen because, you know, when your body's lacking oxygen, you're going to have a lot of other symptoms. A lot of other things start to happen because your breath is part of your cellular power, part of the cellular energy in your being. And little by little, that got worse and worse over time. And then by 2018, I was diagnosed with stage 4. So I was at stage 1 in 2011. By 2018, I was at stage 4. So at stage 4, they consider that terminal. That's the end. You're getting towards the end. I was at about 40% lung function at that point. And at that point is where they start getting ready to put you on full-time oxygen and things like that. So that was really difficult. I've had several spiritual awakenings before that. And when I say awakenings, my awareness is that it's not like something that happens. Those are awarenesses of things that happen in our lifetime, but it's been the whole time since before I came out of the womb. I've been evolving spiritually. All of us are, even if it doesn't look that way, even if that's our judgment says it's some other way. Each human is going through a stage of evolution, regardless of the speed in which it's happening. It's just happening. And that led me really deep into depression because now I'm looking at, I wasn't afraid of my death because I already was aware that I'm a soul having a human experience. So I had no fear. It wasn't fear of death in any way, but I was really sad because my wife and my daughter are watching me die. And it was really sad, you know, and I know they could feel that. They're very empathic people. They knew I was struggling, and that hurt the hell out of me. That's just like, God, this sucks. And so what that did is that kind of took me into a really low rock bottom, like a really deep rock bottom, where I had this awareness, like, I don't know if I want to continue, you know, like I know, like I could just, you know, end it here and end up somewhere else. But I also knew, like, I'm here for a reason, you know? So my question was, and that's where I like to use in healing, is open-ended questions, where we ask a question into the higher mind without trying to search or think for an answer, because the subconscious mind has no limit. The conscious mind only knows its past experience. And so I asked this open-ended question because I was laying in my bed. I was up for 3 days because I had severe insomnia most of my life, and it got even worse when I couldn't breathe anymore. So now I can't breathe, I can't laugh, I can't cry, and I can't sleep. So those things right there, I mean, devastating. Like it was like death for me. It was like the deepest form, the darkest hell I've ever experienced. I've experienced a lot of stuff. I call my life everywhere but the electric chair. I've experienced all kinds of shit. But that hands down was the most difficult and hard. And I asked the question and said, well, why should I continue? And as I sat there, that was like my first, again, really close interaction with a spirit since the time I was so young, where it was really vivid and open to me. And it was an angel being. This angel being who now I'm really close with came to me. His name's Fratacangelo is his name. And he's always been with me. He's one of my like spirit guides or, you know, parts of my higher self. It came to me. And what he said to me was, perhaps, knew how to ask too. He didn't just say, here, listen, do this. Perhaps you could think about things more positively. And so that kind of rung me like a bell. And I was like, my first reaction was like, what? I was in just complete disagreement with that. Like, are you serious? Like, how am I supposed to be, you know, positive? I'm suffocating to death. Okay. I can't do anything. Plus, I had 13 other symptoms going on at the same time. Hip issues. They were telling me I was going to need hip replacements. I had chronic pain in my spine, arthritis in my hands, knees, and ankles. I had psoriasis over 65% of my body. Chronic headaches, my hearing loss, all kinds of issues. I could just keep going. I try to not remember those things, right. But that is how I got here. I had all is a different kind of thing that happened. But I had all these things happening, and I just couldn't understand, like, what the hell do you mean? And that's why I rattled off all these things, communicating back to the angel. How am I supposed to be positive? How do I do that? Do you see what's going on here? I'm asking the angel, do you see? And do you see the condition of the world? Is what I said. Do you see the world? Is what I was saying. And then the angel said to me, it said perhaps again, perhaps you don't see the world as it is, but you see it as you are. That shut me up for a minute. I like, opened up some sort of awareness. It was kind of miraculous in a way, the understanding that came through that transmission. It was like a wisdom transmission came into me and opened me up. And then I started to have an understanding really quickly that my perception is generating my reality. And then I began to realize, well, I could suffocate to death. I don't have to be sad about it. I like, oh shit. And then something really amazing happened. And like, it was just like this, I would say, like I was touched by God or something. In an instant, I became completely non-resistant to my reality. I went into just complete acceptance. I seen all the things that I was holding on to, the pain I was holding on to, the past that I lived through, the story I was agreeing to. I could see all those things with deep, deep clarity and understand that it happened for me. It didn't happen to me. And it lit me up like a Christmas tree. I still couldn't breathe too well, but oh my gosh, I felt like I was reborn in that moment. It's like I got touched and I filled up with like golden light is kind of what happened. And I got up out of my bed and I walked into the kitchen and the girls were in there and they knew I was having a hard time and everything. And I walked in and they just both kind of look at me, whopper jawed, their mouth was open, looking at me, and they can see me like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know what to say. They're like, you're glowing. I'm like, I feel fucking awesome. That's so good. And I just began to explain to them and we all just started crying because we could just feel that light, that thing that happened. And it was right from there. Something began to shift in me, and my awareness started to open. I started to remember like rapidly started to remember all these things that no one's ever told me before, like really deep spiritual awarenesses and teachings. And my first idea, because like I said, I didn't know what any of this was really yet. And so my first awareness was kind of like, have I lost my mind? Have I had like a nervous breakdown? Have I snapped? And, that's why it's like this. And then my higher mind goes, well, what even if that was the case? Don't you feel how good you feel? What, is that wrong? I was like, no. And that's where it started to teach me really quickly about like, I stopped judging anything as wrong. I can't find it in my world anymore. It doesn't exist because I accept that it's all part of one living energy without separation. And I don't have any awareness that God or the creator or the universe makes mistakes or junk. I don't agree to that anymore. That's hard for most people to get on board with me, and that's okay. I don't say it to make anyone agree with me. I'm just proposing a possibility that's very real for me. Then all of a sudden, I just started to have these awarenesses come to me and started teaching me things. My spiritual guidance started to show up more and more. That angel started to show up. Some more kinds of like nature beings that I've never saw before started to show up around me and started to guide me places, and then guided me towards breath work, something that I kind of already knew about because earlier on, I was a power lifter, and during the powerlifting training, I learned about how to use my breath into my diaphragm to breathe and brace the core. So that way you don't get a hernia. So I already learned how to use my diaphragm. I just didn't know how to use it cyclically to move fluid, or I didn't know what was happening. So it kind of led me. I met this guy named Troy Casey, the certified health nut. He has a nice channel and everything. He's a holistic practitioner. He was about 50 years old at the time in California. This was 2018, late 2018, when that started to happen. And this guy, and I was researching psychedelics. That's how I found out about breathwork, because that started to come on board online for me. I started to learn, Joe Rogan's an awesome teacher to help us learn about things that aren't in the standard eye of the public. Absolutely. And he brought my awareness to DMT, and I wanted to know more. And through researching that's how I came across DMT breathing, because through using the diaphragm, you can access your own DMT. And I was like, well, hell, that sounds amazing, but I can't really breathe. So I watched this guy. I talked to him. He sent me a YouTube video, and I started to do his breath work. And right away, even though I couldn't really breathe, I felt something. And it was energy. I couldn't see energy yet. I could sort of feel it. It was kind of early, but I definitely felt something right away. And when I started to go into my breathing, I started to notice like these changes or feelings within me, and I was taking in even more every day that passed, and I just never stopped. I started that day, and it's never stopped. Since then, every day I've done breath work every day. But at first, and then I told Mary about it, and so she showed up, and just to support me, she had no idea what this was or anything. And I just continued with the practice. It took me deeper and deeper. I loved it so much. I started researching all of the experts around the world. Started researching, and then I started to learn more and more about how it's an ancient human technology. It's not something that's modern science. We're just using modern science to explain it. It's something the ancients have always known. And I was like, wow, that's really amazing. Then I started to take, I met Wim Hof. I found Wim Hof, and then I started to watch him, and then I was called to take his courses. So I took his courses, and then I started to take the courses to become a Wim Hof instructor. And that was pretty neat. That was great training. And he's actually, I would explain Wim Hof as a shaman. He's a man that's giving energy and light into the world, unsuspectingly to most people, because they think it's just breathing in cold water, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And when you take his courses, particularly one that called Power of the Mind, he's the first person that showed me how to use your breath to heal yourself. Okay. And I could see it. I could really pick up that energy and have the awareness of it. So I was on that path. I was doing all the training and everything. And then it was another live stream that I happened to just watch one morning. And it was that guy, Troy Casey, the certified health nut. I never watched his live stream before. You know, nothing's an accident. So he gets on this live stream, and what he's doing, he's interviewing a shaman, and the shaman's coming on to do a distance healing for him. Troy Casey's at this point in Santa Monica, California, and then there's the shaman. And I turn on, the shaman comes on, and I see this red-haired, giant red beard, pasty white guy with these bright blue eyes sitting there. And I'm like, wow, he's different. I can feel it. I can feel this guy's energy. I'm like, wow, that's different. So I watched this guy start to work with Troy Casey. And as he started to work with him, this was the first time I had energy awareness from distance. Okay. I could feel, as he was working on this guy, on Troy Casey, I could feel the shaman's energy and what was happening. So I was like, wow, this is so cool. You know, by this point, I was deep into my practice of breathing and meditating every day, connecting into my higher self, prayer. I had a lot of things already happening, lots of unfoldments happening, and cold showers and all kinds of things. I already had started the Positive Pineapple and was helping people with life coaching and things like that. But then this guy shows up, and when he showed up, I could just feel it. And then so they put on the live stream. They said, comment where you're watching from. And I was like, watching from Westlake. And then the shaman comes forward. He goes, hey, I'm in Rocky River. This is Casey McBride, by the way. So Casey McBride then shows up in my reality, and we talk a little bit through Messenger, and I invite him over my house. He lives 7 minutes away. Oh, nice. He comes over the house, and, you know, we hung out for a little bit. He was telling me about his story and how he got on the path and what it is and everything. And this all sounded pretty mystical and wacky to me, because at this point I'm much more kind of science-minded and working kind of in that, even though I have a spiritual awareness. But basically, he shows up, we sit down, we do some work. We did some breath work. I took him on one of my little breath work journeys here at my house. And then when he comes out of the journey, we're all kind of, me, him, and Mary, we're all kind of like, wow, that was the most energy we've ever felt. And then Casey just starts laughing and shaking his head. And I'm like, what's going on, man? He's like, I don't know what to say. He's like, I never had this happen before. I'm like, what? He's like, well, my spirit guides are coming through strong, and they're telling me that you're a Paco, not just any shaman. You're a strong shaman. You don't know yet. I just kind of giggled. I'm like, all right, guy, I don't know what that means, kind of thing. Like, that sounds really far out, this Peruvian shamanism, all that. I don't understand what any of it is or anything. And I'm like, okay, I just, like, whatever. We continued to hang out for a while over time, and he was sharing more information with me. We were sharing with each other, teaching each other, healing each other. That's kind of what was happening. And then it wasn't long after that, my ability to just help people heal started to open. It started with physical pain healings. The first one started off with Mary. She had a torn rotator cuff in the right shoulder. bothered her for about 3 years. She just didn't really want surgery. And my first physical healing happened with her. We were walking through a sunny field. It was a sunny day, walking through this grassy field, bright sun high in the sky. And she's just really kind of upset. And I'm like, what's going on? She said, my shoulder's really bothering me today. Just it's swinging and hanging is hurting today. I'm like, oh, that's really bad. And then my angel guy comes to me and he goes, hey, you can help her, right? And I'm like, what? He's like, you can help her. I was like, I can. I was like, well, how do I do that? I'm not having out loud conversations, spiritual conversation. And he's like, well, just stop her right now and I'll guide you. I'm like, okay. So I stop her in the field and I look at her and the guide says, ask her if she's open to receive healing. And I just said, are you open to receive healing? She's like, yeah. Like she stuttered for a second. I was like, yeah. And then the angel guide told me, well, I want you just to slow her down, take a few breaths. We took a few breaths. And then it's instructed me to take my right hand, my giving hand, my divine masculine hand, and put it on her shoulder, and raise my left hand, my divine feminine, my accepting hand, my receiving hand to the sun. So I was able to channel. It showed me how to channel the sun through my palm, and it felt like Iron Man Tony Stark's palm is how it felt to me. This round beam of light came in my palm, up my arm. I could feel it hit my heart, and it just was natural. I didn't have to do anything. My heart came alive and lightened up that energy and sent it through my right hand and into her shoulder. And then the angel said to me, it was very specific. It said, be specific. I want you to set your intention to create cellular restructuring. I was like, okay, I'm doing that with my mind. And then it was just like a few seconds, like it felt like an hour, but it was just a few seconds. And we both could feel these clicks and pops. Poof, gone. Never had a problem since. All we could do was stand there and start crying because we could feel that divine light that came upon us both. We could feel the blessing that came into us, that miracle we got to witness. After that, it just kind of started to open up like wildfire. More and more people started showing up around me that needed physical healing. I was really apprehensive at it at first. I didn't want other people to see me doing it. I was afraid of the judgment of others. And that's also related to a past life trauma where I was burned at the stake for witchcraft. So that was something that was unresolved as of yet, which taught me that. But I just kind of continued. And then Casey said, this is what I was talking about. He said that I knew this was going to open in you. He's like, and what I'm telling you is that you're going to need a structure in which to put your energy, or else it's going to become chaotic. And I still wasn't really listening. And then not long after that, I started to have this chaotic feeling in my energy. I started to feel kind of weird and manic, and things started to get goofy psychologically for me because I didn't have the structure. So I was like, all right, man, it went as far as Casey was like, I want you in this program. I want you to be part of this apprenticeship for this shamanism so bad. I'm willing to pay for it for you. And I'm like, I don't know if I want that, dude. I think I want to be a Wim Hof instructor. That's what I want to do. And what happened was I was like faced with this crossroads. It was right at this point where either I was going to pursue this potential of going into this apprenticeship, which I didn't really understand too much or know about, or follow into being the Wim Hof instructor. So I took all the training all the way up to where you got to sign this paper saying that you now become part of Inner Fire, which is the company owned by Wim Hof's son. Wim Hof doesn't even own his name. That's the weird part. So I was kind of apprehensive for some reason about that, and I didn't know why at the time. I found out later that, Enam Hof is his son, and he devised the company and everything, but he has nothing to do. He doesn't even use the practice or anything like that, and I guess he's a real jerk to all the people that work for that company. And that would have cut me off from being able to do anything I wanted to do with Positive Pineapple and all those things. I just saw these restrictions, and my guides were like, don't do this. And I had a lot of like, why? What do you mean? Don't do this. And I don't go against my guidance because it saved my life. So when it's telling me I want to resist, like, what do you mean? I've been training for the last 2 years to do this. I'm not doing this now. And you're like, don't worry, there's a reason why. And then it was right after that, Casey essentially took me by my ear and brought me to Zane. And it was right there. I was offered a scholarship to be part of this apprenticeship. And as I went into that apprenticeship, it all began to just unload on me. My memory came back because this is what I am. In our tradition, I'm considered Kamaska, means natural born shaman. Okay. I didn't have any teachers to help me remember my shamanism. It happened on its own. it opened up all on its own. And so when I had this human teacher, it was really cool because before Zane would lay out the coursework, I would have a memory of already what we're doing, especially when it came to like ancestral healing. I already was having it happen organically, and like Zane was there to help me sharpen the tool. So Zane along my journey has been a great wisdom transfer to help me remember who I am. And so that started to open up that within about 9 months, I picked up so much of that energy. It was amazing. And I just started to remember. And then the following year, I was asked to become a mentor of this ancient tradition, which is a very high honor. Most people don't do that in that span of time, but there were others too. There's others of us that began to grow in that sort of way. And then last year was the first time I had apprenticed students. I was a mentor to 4 or 5 people last year, just in that tradition, and that was an amazing thing. And so that's just continued to open. And now I'm here. I'm still growing, expanding, reaching out into the world, and spreading medicine everywhere I can reach.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, man. Yeah, there's quite a bit that you said that. Hold on one second. I have to plug my computer in.
Plug your computer in, Pat. We don't want to go dead, man.
No, we don't.
Yeah, I know that's a lot of story. That's kind of like a skimming. There's a lot more, but that's kind of I'm hoping that ends up in the book.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. We've all lived such interesting lives to really dive deep and go through every nook and cranny.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it'd be like you said, a book. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so the first thing that stuck out to me is like, it's so interesting to me that it seems, at least from my perspective in my area, the most spiritually minded people seem to have I feel like there's a stream of consciousness with certain people that is stronger. And when we're in that lack mindset, we dive into escapism instead of like really focusing in on how to transmute it to a positive, which I think escapism is to a certain extent. It's a less form of that lack mindset or that negative self-talk. It seems like the most spiritual people have had such trials with escapism, whether it be, it seems like alcohol is the most prevalent one in our society, but there's so many different, I call it the game of disassociation. And there's many ways to play the game, but yeah, it's just super interesting to me that that's the case. And it's so beautiful that, you've had that awareness at such a young age, and I feel like I've always heard the voice of my higher power, right? But yeah, through different experiences or sharing it, or I would feel like weird or something, I would stifle that,
Sure.
and go against my inner guidance. And yeah, it smacks me in the face every time. And that was something that I am one defiant motherfucker, dude.
Same.
And it's like, it doesn't serve me anymore, and over this past a year and a half, 2 years, I've been able to trust my inner guidance more and more. And it's almost like I don't want to test it no more. Like I'd play with it a little bit and be cocky about it. And it just what was I thinking? All the blessings are right there, they're coming, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it myself. I don't need to listen to the innate voice that my higher power has given me to walk this spiritual, awesome path of, beautiful gifts. I'm gonna, I don't know. I feel like there's a main quest we're on, and we can always hop off and go on these little side quests. But I don't want to hop too far from the path anymore.
No doubt. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the sensitivities and escapism. So that's generally why you'll see all the people I've ever met in my lifetime so far, the people that are the most addicted and separated from their life and in the biggest turmoil are the people with the most spiritual awareness. And that is what guides us there, is that it's that sensitivity, that thing where something's wrong. I need to stifle this. I need to make this go away. That's what led me into drug use and alcoholism, because what did it do? It altered my perception of what was happening in that time, in that moment, because you and I weren't raised in a village where we had elders and shamans and seers and sages to help people like us to understand what's happening. So instead, that shows up more as like mental, emotional problems is what that shows up. But I can tell you through what I've done in the last 5 years, I've worked with over 70,000 people in 48 countries. Many of them have been diagnosed with mental illness. And I can tell you the vast majority of these people have nothing wrong with their brain at all. It just has unorganized energy, just as mine and yours were. We have a form of neurodivergence is what brought us here. And that whole voice you've been hearing, that thing you've been rebellious against, it's just because you couldn't trust it, because you've been taught, we were taught from an early age not to trust certain things, especially when it comes to something that's like a voice in our head, that we've almost been taught to like, that must be crazy is what it is. The thing is it happens to lots of people around us. They just don't talk about it either because they don't want to be judged by the others. But that's a normal thing, is through sensitivity. My sensitivity to everything is what led me. Primarily, I'd say my biggest thing in my whole life was alcohol. Alcohol was a big thing. Why? Because alcohol can lower your frequency faster than anything else. There's other drugs I did that did the opposite, that would open that up for me. And cocaine was one of them. Cocaine was huge, especially with this idea of a diagnosed ADD mind. I agreed to this diagnosis when it's not a dysfunction in any sort. It's a disorganization of energy is what's happening. And so when I would use, this was before they had me on prescription meth, that I was using cocaine. And when I would use cocaine, I would have the most clear, concise, conscious thinking. I could switch from drunk and kind of belligerent, do a couple toots, and all of a sudden I'm like a saint. I'm counseling everyone around me, helping everyone around me. I'm having really clear thoughts about myself and my life, and amazing things. A hangover would ensue and all kinds of things like that, which weren't conducive, but those things actually showed me paths. Just like cannabis. Cannabis was huge for my expansion into my mind, because when I put down the bottle, about 6 months after that, I reintroduced myself into cannabis and then started to have a really deep understanding of its medicinal ability. I could really understand it and started using it kind of in a ceremonial way. And that opened up my sensitivity. That opened me up in a big, big way. It can be used for escapism. I know lots of people that use weed for escapism. That's when you're not using it in a sacred way, and that's when it becomes detrimental. There's that fine line where it's good for you and then where it's not so good for you. There's and that all has to do with our intention. Are you using it with an intent to open? Or are you using it into an intent to escape? I don't like how today feels. I'm going to get stoned and escape it for a while. If it's like that, then that's an escape.
I like to say the difference between medicine and poison is the dose.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Intention as well. Like you can take a huge dose of something, and if your intention is for it to be medicinal for you, your intention drives all energy. Everything here is a quantum field of energy. So your intention, whatever your intention is, most of our intention, we're unaware of it because it's obscured within the subconscious program. Things we have no idea why that's happening. That takes us back to that subconscious program that happens between the ages of 0 and 7. From 0 to 7, we're in theta brainwave rates. It's essentially hypnosis, and we're downloading our parents. We don't know that, but that becomes a background kind of thing. I like to put it in perspective, like say you're driving down the road. You're driving down the road, you're aware of everything that's happening, but then you begin to think. You start to think about your job and your life and all these things. And, you're not really paying attention to driving because now you're no longer conscious. You're unconscious of your reality because you're in your thought. But you continue to drive. How's that happening? The subconscious program is what's running. That's happening all the time. We don't understand that. When the incessant thinking is happening, we're just kind of on an autopilot, and it's guiding us to a pattern in which it knows. It's a common pattern that it just kind of recycles. But we can begin to change that kind of thing when we start listening to that inner intuition, when you start hearing that inner voice and you start understanding. And what I like to call this is the relationship between I and me. Who is me? Who is me? Anthony. Who is that? That's a character that's been made through this past experience of this reality. In essence, it's illusory is what it is. I made it up. Once I began to really realize that, I understood that I no longer had to be that character, and I can choose to be any character I wish. I can connect to that in any way I want to, open that kind of stuff up. And it's through releasing the old story and releasing the old character, we begin to be reborn. That's our awareness and awakening. That's our remembering. I remember that I'm not the story I've agreed to, or it's been grafted upon me.
I really like a lot of like I feel like my biggest teachers have been books and music, but and it's I love how you say the remembering, because I concur with that 100%. And it's also like it's been a journey for me to realize that my imagination is 100% real. I'm a very skeptical person, and I hear a lot of talk about spirit guides and people claiming to have these humanoid type deities that guide them. And I was super skeptical. And it was actually after a Moshi meeting, you had sat down with a couple of us and did like a guided meditation to meet our spirit guides. And it blew me away how vivid my imagery in my mind became. And it's just like, and I want to challenge everyone to be skeptical.
Yes.
And do the practice to see if it resonates with you. I don't subscribe to anything off rip, which can be detrimental in a way, but it served me pretty well. And I was just mind blown. I met these my divine masculine and divine feminine, and it's interesting to me because the names that came in were different. I knew they were with me the whole time because I had different past experiences where I like name a video game character, or find this weird reading in a book that just resonated with me so deep. But in that moment when I was younger, I didn't really pay much attention to it. I mean, it caught my eye, but I just went on my day to day. And then as time progressed and I do these different practices and learn different things, it's like, oh my goodness, it's like I love how you talked earlier about like the Sesame Street characters, and that's how you're able to communicate, because it's the path of least resistance, right? And that was your path of least resistance, and mine has been like video games, or like different like whatever the message comes through music. I'm not resistant to listening to music at all. And so like, oh, these messages come in, and my higher power is speaking through that because I'm not resistant to that. And it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, because it's just using it as a medium. The thing is our mind creates this idea of reality. That's what's happening. It's mental. It's a mental reality, but everything's alive and not separate from you. And that's really what the path, like what I learned through my path of shamanism, is how to create relationships with the living energy around me. And like you, like when Casey showed up, I was skeptical, really skeptical, until he started to allow me. That's what the teaching is. I'm not telling it. That's religion. When you tell someone this is how it is and it's no other way. What I like to do is inject possibility and let you learn on your own. If you're skeptical, good. I love skepticism, because often for that person, just like how that was for you, an awareness comes in. Oh shit, that's something because the skepticism, like you said, sometimes detrimental because it's blocking. Being skeptical is kind of one thing, being dismissive is another. So we got to kind of watch how that mindset goes. I'm definitely skeptical. I dismiss nothing. I accept that if someone tells me about one of their experiences, I never doubt it, because who am I to doubt someone else's experience? I can't say like, bullshit, Pat, that's not your experience. I could never, you can't do that, but people try to do that, but it's that connection that you had. I remember that day. I remember that feeling. I could feel there were several other people that are sitting there with us that had really powerful connections. Because when we sit together and work that way, we're parts of a quantum energy field. We're working together and vibrating in the field, and can bring even more distinct energy here. This is like in our tradition what we call karpai, which means initiation. When my guides tell me to sit there with people and lead them through certain things, like our group meetings and everything's like that, those things are all forms of initiation. They're initiating beings into the Sikhi Nan. That's that living energy system in which that's what it's called in our tradition, ley lines of energy, or a living nervous system of light. And when we work together in there, and that's kind of the shaman's way, my thing is I'm like a map holder. I can't take you and I can't make you journey, but I can hold the map, be like, hey, try this, go this way, try to go there. And you can decide to kind of do that. And the thing is once we sit down and we allow ourselves to open a little bit, the incessant thinking mind, that analytical mind gets out of the way, and then our soul mind is what takes over. That part of our being can learn so much more than this part can. And that's that's a really powerful tool when we sit in those kinds of things and have that guide connection. Those are really powerful kinds of things. So I do have a question about that. Has that evolved? Do you still communicate with your guides since then, or do you have a practice with that? Or
It's definitely evolved since then, and I don't practice regularly, but I have started incorporating in my morning prayers. I definitely communicate, and it seems like I'm leaning more towards the divine masculine. It's interesting to me how I seem to communicate with that side more than the feminine. But yeah, no, I definitely, it brings me, when I'm seeking insight or guidance, I call on that, more now than ever. So it's interesting to me because, right, we all are one, even, I believe you've also said that, day, which is really cool to me. And it took me a while to process, but like, don't get so stuck on how it shows up, right? It's just a vibration. The image you get is subject to change, right? And so I'm over time, it's not become such a physical form. It's almost like an energy form now.
mm-hmm.
And so, which I find is, anytime I put things in boxes, I feel like I limit it in a way. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the journey right now of breaking down those boundaries of how I construct things, so I can be more open to different to it showing up in more impactful ways, I believe, if I can do that. But yeah, for sure, I definitely get the synchronicities, a lot of license plates, we'll have synchronistic numbers, or lights are huge for me. Like, lights will flicker on and off, and I don't necessarily call on it for specific things, but I get this over enveloped feeling of like I'm safe and I have a fucking army with me if I need it, and I also I almost think of it as like a GPS. You think of a GPS and it'll tell you have your destination. It'll tell you the fastest route to get there, right? And so I believe all my desire, asking it is given, right? Everything I desire is out there. So I use that guidance or these synchronicities or these internal feelings that I believe are my spirit guides guiding me as my GPS to, oh, I got an inclination. I want to run to the store. I don't even know why, but I do, And the other day, it was so beautiful. I ran to Tractor Supply to grab, I needed a food safe bucket, right? But I've been needing it. I wasn't too worried. I'm like, all right, kids, let's go. I ran into my cousin there, and he's seen my kids, and he pulled out $1 for Patrick, and he didn't have another $1. So he gave Sage a 20, and he's like, okay, you got kids, split this, right? And then we're in the line in Tractor Supply. My kids are waving their money at this guy, right? And I'm like, hey, guys, it's not good practice to whip your money out and wave it at people, right? And the guy said, you know what happens when you wave your money? He's like, you get more. He gave each of my kids and me a $5 bill. And I'm like, this is just so beautiful, And so I took the kids to Target to buy whatever little toys they wanted. But it's just like, wow, these cool blessings flow into my life when I just move how my spirit guides or my inner guidance is directing me. It's just silly, fun things. It doesn't,
Yeah.
you know.
Our realities are reflections of our energy. So like, it's hard for us to understand in our base mind and how it's been, conditioned. But the thing is, everything you're experiencing is another frequency of being. There is no yesterday. That doesn't actually, it exists, but it's not yesterday. It's existing now. And everything that we're perceiving at your world, and that's my favorite thing. It's because of your vibration, you're drawing other vibrationally alive people towards you. So that way, when your kids are waving money, it's not someone going like, what the fuck is wrong with your kids? They're saying, oh, how cute. You guys are awesome. You know what happens when you wave your money? This, because it's a higher dimensional mind. You're drawing that experience towards you by your own frequency. Just like our spirit guides, like we were saying earlier. I always try to tell people, because, people come to me, they've been on a spiritual path for a very long time, 20, 30 years. I've had people with over 30 years on a spiritual path. Like I've been on my spiritual path since the 80s, and then they show up. But, it's just things have changed since then. There's more energy and availability as we all grow, because it's all one thing. And I help people understand, allow your guidance to evolve with you. That actually holds us back. And that's a form of attachment, is where people can grow that. They have the spirit guide. And the whole reason that it shows up in a form, I don't really call it physical, because it's not in this slow vibration. This awareness of like it has a shape, or a humanoid, a human-like shape. It's like that so my mind can have a relationship with it. It's hard for most people to have a relationship with waves. Everything, I'm aware that everything's waves and I can feel that, but my mind will collapse that wave function just enough so that way my brain goes, oh, that's Jesus. Oh, that's a angel. Oh, that's one of my spirit teachers from the lineage, or whatever it is. My brain is what makes it. So I don't tell people however it shows up. Your spirit guide can show up as Roger Rabbit. Totally okay, because this is what you're comfortable connecting with. But what you want to do is encourage and allow your spiritual guidance to grow, because your guides, these its aren't separate from you. It is you. These are parts of us we just don't remember or know yet. It's fragmented. We are the mind of God, fragmented is what it is. And we bring these things, they start to overlay and come together. And with that comes knowledge, because when you're connecting that, those are parts of the energy field that they're always there. The thing is, you're already enlightened. Your creation itself that's the joke. People think they have to get somewhere to become enlightened. No, man, you just have to let go of the idea that you're not. That's really which is difficult. It's meant to be difficult. All right, so I'm a rememberer. I remember majority of my past lives and the spaces in between. I very much remember all kinds of things. And I can tell you, by far, this form of human, this human existence here on this planet, in this frequency of reality, is the hardest one I've ever seen. It's by far. All of us, because here, look what we did. We injected ourselves into this reality. We came in completely devoid of any awareness or knowledge, butt naked and helpless. Okay? Imagine that. That's like being marooned on an island. Like you're getting thrown out. What bravery our spirit has to bring ourselves into this kind of reality for the purpose of alignment of energy. Where my deepest understanding is that what we're meant to do in this human kind of form is learn to become perfect absorbers and radiators of energy, because we live in a world now that's very, split. So this is good and this is bad. I don't teach that way. I teach from a fourth dimension mind where there is no separation. Now, listen, everything does work here in this physical world as duality. The mind does not have to be dualistic. It doesn't need to be that way. It can see everything as one thing. Then that eliminates the judgment. From there, we become creator. We're moving into creation, because I always kind of point out there's 3 levels of healing, 3 levels of being. All of us start out as victims because we don't know any better. We think this shit's happened to us. Why me? Why is it like this? It should be some other way, disagreeing with the design, disagreeing with the reality. And then typically what happens to most people, they get tired of living that way That's that force, that's that crushing force that's turning, coal into diamonds. The diamond starts to emerge. Now we move into a survivor warrior mindset. That's why you'll see lots of people that are early on their spiritual expansion saying, I'm a spiritual warrior. I'm here to fight the spiritual war, which there isn't one. It's inside the mind. So I'm here to fight against things. So if you're here, now you're standing up for yourself, starting to create a boundary, starting to love yourself and understand yourself. But when you're in that mindset, you're still in separation. You're saying that I'm pitted against something. Then we can move as we grow through that part of our consciousness. Little awareness starts to come in, and then we start to notice, oh shit, everything's been just right for me to get here. That's that radical acceptance. I kind of skipped over the warrior part. That never happened to me. And I never had human teachers to indoctrinate my mind with third dimension fear-based teachings of be afraid of this and guard your energy and all these, you'll hear people say, I'm empathic. It took me a while to figure out what's mine and what's not mine. I got news for you. It's all yours. And if you're feeling it, it's in you. But the empathic mind, the pre-empathic mind wants to create separation. So it wants to say, Patrick, your energy is too heavy and I can't be around you. When really that's the greatest gift. If you can trigger me in some sort of way, you're showing me where I'm not free. That's what that is. But people who are still in a dualistic, fear-based kind of mind state, they'll be like, well, I had to figure out what's not mine and what is mine. And all that's happening there is an unzipping, a separation happens there, which is okay. It's a change, which is good. I don't say that these are bad things. It's also a form of bypassing. I'm not one of those people that say you're bad because you spiritually bypass. I say, hey, that's the part of the journey you're on. Yeah. Doesn't mean it stays that way. I'm not going to look down on you and say, hey, you're dumb because you're spiritually bypassing. You're doing what you need to do to survive what you're going through. I'll just support that energetically. I love you for that. But I want you to understand that that's not the end. That's not the end of the story for you. The thing is moving into where I accept that all energy is good energy. So that's why I have no fear of hoocha. I love other people's opinions or comments or disgruntled ideas of me. I love those things because that means I've reached you. If I can get you talking about me or thinking about me, what's happened is I've infiltrated your energy field. And the thing is, I come from a solid heart, a solid loving heart. So even if I trigger you, if I'm triggering you, it's coming from the vibration. Where it comes from is not in the point of pain or hate. It's coming from love. The trigger comes from love. So the end result, even if the person doesn't know right away, is change, is in a positive change and something that grows and expands. But like I said, that's all intention. Wherever your intention is, how do I intend to place this energy? Someone could say something to me. It may trigger me for a second. In that moment, I'll become aware when I'm triggered. This isn't about them. It's about me. Because it doesn't matter what anyone else says. I don't care what anyone else says. My trigger is about how I feel about myself and what they're saying. If they're trying to attack me, they're just confessing to me who they are. And all I got to do is pay attention to that and open myself up to receive that. I'll take all the heavy energy I can and transmute it. That's part of one of the things in this training that I've taken in the Pakokuna tradition is I've developed an ability to do something called hucha. And hucha means heavy energy or condensed light. Mikwi means to digest. So I can walk into a room that's loaded with a bunch of pissed off people, and I'll start to suck up that energy like a sponge. And then I'm able to basically combust it and break it down into its constituents and send it into the three different directions, because we're basically three levels of being piled on top of each other. In this physical sense, it's a body, a heart, and a mind. Body, feeling, mind. That's how it is here. And that's like the three levels of being. But we can kind of bridge those three levels of being together, and it creates a unified source field. And when that happens, information just starts to flow and come in. And then that's that radiation. Like I said, absorber and radiator of light. If you can absorb all the energy around you without fear, without judgment, without separation, you can transmute it into anything you want. We are the greatest alchemists there are. People always think it's this physical idea of alchemy. Like, I'm going to take this rock and turn it into gold in front of you. That's not how it starts. It starts at the energetic level. Can I take my pain? Can I take my fear? Can I take your fear and pain and everyone else's? And can I turn that into love? That's transmutation. That is the deepest form of alchemy. And as all of us begin to rise in our consciousness and remember this is going to change the very fabric of what we're perceiving as this third dimension reality. And this is where, New Agers kind of talk about the fifth dimension, opening into the fifth dimension. I don't really see these dimensions because, again, that creates separation. They're not separate containers. It's just overlaying frequency, and your antenna can pick up on it. So it's just like how Jesus told us in the scripture. He said, the kingdom of heaven is within.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's where it's at. It's your vibration. Heaven isn't somewhere you die to go to. Neither is hell. I've been to both of them. I'm aware.
Yeah. Yeah, you said so. It's so like I have a lot to think about with what you just said, because I have in the recent week called myself a warrior of the light, right?
Who are you fighting?
Well, yeah, that's true. Well, it's interesting because the way I choose to fight is to be the change I want to see in the world, right? And emulate the vibrations that I want to see. And yeah, you can't fight fire with fire, right? But I'm still perhaps in the dualistic mindset of there are energies I fear. I like how you said that. Like, I can walk into any room, and if I don't fear it, I can take it on, transmute it, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm in the process of watching the world develop in a way that fucking freaks me out, and it triggers me. And so walking in the light and understanding that, like, and even in my own personal life, it's the turmoil and the at the time perceived negative situations which built me to be the fine instrument I believe I am today. And so I think that's on a like an individual cell what I think I am, and Mother Gaia or Pachamama, as the whole unit itself has to go through that evolutionary stage of witnessing what is not serving it so it can break free to live in the light. And so I'm and there's it never ends, right? Like we always got the next level to go to. There's always more awareness to come, and it's so cool to I love the saying, like, you are who you surround yourself with. So seeing people who've transcended different mindsets, who have accomplished different financial gains, who are doing their own thing, like you are with the positive pineapple, like it really inspires me to, like, oh, cool, I'm there, but this is what I can achieve. And I always, like, if I observe someone else doing something, it's took me many years to do this, but if someone else can do it, so can I, know. And absolutely. So, like, building my own brand now and just doing getting myself out there. I mean, I'm sure, like, my first interactions with the kind of community we're involved with, like, I think I was a lot more fearful in a way, like not sharing my thoughts or not standing up and saying how I feel, which is the same thing. But and now I've broken out of my shell quite a bit. That internal shame dialogue, or like fear of stepping on people's toes in a compassionate way, even though, like, all that has left me to an extent. And it's just it's beautiful to see. And it's like, me as a being, I feel like I've been called like a shadow shower, so to speak. Like, I don't even consciously do it, but my presence allows people to safely view things they were suppressing. And that was not warranted well in my in the past at all. Like, it triggered people, and I was not able to get close to people because, well, that was a part of me too, obviously. And the more I learn to love and care about myself, the more I'm accepting love. I didn't realize how hard it was for me to accept love until this past year. And I'm like, holy shit, I reject the thing I've been praying for the most, but that's part of the journey. So
and be gentle with yourself when you do remember, like, oh yeah, I remember. Like, the mind wants to go, why didn't I do this before? Why? And that's all just disagreement with reality. Is this supposed to be some other way than it is? Right. It can't be. I like how you touched on, world development, like, that's a really normal thing, and a thing that a lot of people come to me with, especially people who are on their spiritual path and maybe a little earlier on their spiritual path, where they're caught up with the things of the world. And what I tell them is, shut off your fucking TV. That's what I'm going to tell you. Stop it. That's not part of your life. You're not meant to take in all that information. That's designed to keep you trapped in creating the world that entity wants you to create.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever your attention goes, your energy flows. So if you're giving your attention to the atrocities of the world and it's affecting you vibrationally, what's happening? These are the two things that are the most powerful things about human beings. And that's one, imagination. That thing we were just talking, super powerful. That's how you manifest. Everything here is manifested from that imagination. So if they can take control of your mind and have you imagining these scary outcomes, and then behind that control your emotion, this is manifestation.
Yeah.
Okay, this is precisely manifestation, meeting your intuition, meeting your imagination with your emotion. So what happens is we're actually creating. We don't know that because we've been taught to be defensive and afraid, to see the things that are happening in the world as they're really bad. Why are we saying that? Because it's uncomfortable. It's shifting and changing. When I see turmoil in the world, I kind of quietly go over here and go, yay. Not that I like turmoil. I like change. I understand that the things that I don't have disagreement with God. Okay. I know that God's in charge and doing the things that need to happen. My human mind has no business questioning that design. So what happens is I accept the design and I see, well, I also know that destruction is the mother of creation. I had to be completely destroyed to be reborn again. And so did you. So same thing for Pachamama. She just moves a little bit slower than we do. She's even a slower moving energy. Mm-hmm. We're already energy. You're not a body. You're a spirit. You're observing yourself as a body. That's slowed down information and energy. This thing you're calling physical is by no means solid. Not at all. And the seers like myself, we're fully aware of that. We can feel that and know that. It's totally illusory. It's basically a hologram. We're aware it's like a holographic kind of image. But the thing is it doesn't matter. The mind goes, does that mean it's not real? What's real? It's what your interpretation of that is. What is real is your experience. And that's why we're here. We've injected ourselves into a human reality with lots of beautiful challenges, which I like to throw that word away and say opportunities to be able to expand and grow. I love to see, even when I lose, when I forget who I am and I fall into a pattern and my mind runs away, that's not a problem. I see it as a gift. Look, it's showing me something. When something hurts in my life, my first reaction might be heavy, but it doesn't take long for my consciousness to kick in. I go, okay, I'm going to accept this and I'm going to allow it to show me what it needs to show me. Because I want to continually work at stopping on disagreeing with reality. Because I assure you, and this is what I tell everyone, if you ever suffer, you have to become aware that you're disagreeing with what is. Suffering, pain's inevitable. Shit's going to happen. It's going to hurt. It has to. I'm signed up for that. I signed up to observe pain. And what I love to tell people is when I communicate with spirit beings outside of this frequency of awareness, when I communicate with them, they tell me, gosh, being human was awesome. And I'm looking forward to doing it again. And they say crazy shit to me like, oh, I can't wait to have my heart broken again. And I go, what? Like, yeah, it's a really profound kind of energetic growth. Like, yeah. You know, that's what it's for. The spirits, and that's another idea. People think the spirits around us are somehow above us. Well, they're not. They're equal and actually looking up to us because we're the ones here taking in the information and spreading into the spiritual space. Our spirit guides learn with us. They're here to guide us and help us because it's an extra part of our awareness, but they're learning with us, cheering us on, especially our ancestors. Ancestral energy is hands down one of the most powerful things I can help someone introduce themselves into, because you are all who have come before you. You are all of that energy. I try to explain it as, think of it, it's like a line or a cord between you and source. You have these two cords, one's divine feminine, one's divine masculine. It's like a twisted pair of energies that connect you to the primary source, or God. Each one of your ancestors is like a link in that chain. And any one of those ancestors that has unresolved data, we would call that trauma. Another word, I push that away. Let's stick with data, because trauma's got a bunch of yucky energy. As soon as I say the word, it's got this crackling feeling. Throw it away. Unresolved data that creates blockage in the chain. It's been there the whole time. They've been experiencing it from their predecessors, so on and so forth. But we are the ones that they prayed about. We are the ones they sang about. We're the ones that are here. We're the flagship of all who have come before us, of creation itself. And that's why we signed up to be here, because you and me and the others, we're the ones that can learn and have the capacity to flush those pipes, to get all of that kucha, all that unresolved data out of that pipe, which will ultimately leads us to our divine source connection. Now, it can't happen all at once, because if I reached into your energy field and shucked them clean, if I shucked your lines between you and source clean, it would be a massive overload. We'd have to be hospitalized. That's what would happen.
Yeah.
But what we're also doing is we're creating an energetic pathway. We're creating a road for others who are on the journey to follow us. Here, it's just like in this situation. I didn't have anybody to model myself after or begin with the positive pineapple, but my intention is to help other people become great in their life. My primary mindset is to try to help everybody around me become as successful as possible. That's what's most important to me, because my ego mind wants me to be successful, but that's never going to work. It doesn't matter how successful I am. It matters how I impact the world around me. So if I can help people to become successful and beautiful, that's a way. That's the map I was talking about, the map holder. I don't know all the answers or anything, but I'll hold up the map and say, hey, this is how I started. And this reminds me of like one of my biggest heroes, Nikola Tesla. You know, he downloaded these ideas and information, and he left the patents open. Please make it better if you can. Not like, this is my knowledge. He understood that no knowledge is yours. Nothing is yours. That's an idea of the ego mind. No thoughts, no inventions. All that stuff already exists in the field. We pick it up and it comes in. But he leaves those patents open. And look, we're using right now technology that he designed. He was way ahead of his time. He even quoted in that time saying, the work I'm doing now is for the future. He knew that already. He was aware. He was talking about someday we'll have little devices that can fit in our breast pocket, that are the breast pocket of our vest, because that's what they wore back then. He was able to pull it out and send pictures and information in real time. He knew that because he could see it. That's not prophetic vision. That was his ability to become aware of potential timeline openings. There is no future or past. All time is now. And that's where prophecy, this idea of prophecy, is this mind, kind of something you mentioned before about the mind always tries to find this beginning and end. That's something that's inherent to this reality, because since you were little, you were taught this is the beginning and this is the end. Well, it's a circuit. It's a circle. There's no beginning nor end. And that takes us back into the truths that are hidden within Scripture. It says, God says, I am the Alpha and Omega.
Yep.
Right. That's everything. There is no beginning or end. It's a flowing kind of energy. It can grow and expand, but it's never going to have this finite beginning or end. And that's where a lot of people think. You mentioned that earlier. You were saying, yeah, I'm aware like there's no end. Yeah, never think that. That's our minds. If we find ourselves thinking that, that's pointing inward to saying, I don't like it here. I have to go there.
Yeah,
right? I need to get there. I need to expand myself spiritually so I can be free and happy. No, you don't. You need to relax and go along your journey, and whatever the little breadcrumbs that you've laid out for yourself, that will be in the form of people, movies, song lyrics. All those things weren't put here by someone else. They're put here by you, for you to be able to see those breadcrumbs and follow along with what's going on. And then you meet people, we meet each other. What happens? We start teaching and learning from each other. I remember one of the first times I could see when something opened up in you. We were sitting there at the Sunrise Barn over at the Sheard's house. And I remember sitting there. It was during an ecstatic dance, and I sat there and I really connected into your energy field. I could see what you really are behind this man named Patrick. And I was like, wow, he doesn't know yet. And so it was really amazing. And I could feel your energy field connecting into mine, just like everyone's does. And you started to like take this download and information in, and it started to change you. You started to alter. And as I watched you from there, so now going back to there to now, I watch you move through all these vibrations. You still exist there, and so do I. But all these vibrational frequencies have skipped by. And now there's this new vision of Patrick, this guy that shows up, and now he's putting himself out there doing live streams. It's all kind of forming together. And I mentioned this at the beginning. I see you being able to do amazing things, the way that you can, and you do. Everyone that meets you, everyone that I talk to about you, like, I love Pat. He's so very authentic. And that's part of your gift is you're able to create space for people to be themselves, because you're unapologetically you. You're not afraid to be in a spiritual circle and for people to judge you because you swear. Because that's not about you, that's about them, right? And that's it. You know, like some people, they would be like offended. People who are pseudo spiritual find, oh, he swore. Like, well, you're missing the fucking point. You know what I'm saying? He's giving you passion is what he's giving you. Take the word with it. Don't try to ascribe meaning to the word by it's a bad word. Is it a bad word, or did you make it a bad word? Right. I see someone that's expressing passion and love. That's what I see. Even if it's, yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love you so much. I actually have to run out and head to work here, but I wanted to give you some time to shout out the Positive Pineapple because I love what you and Mary are doing. I've had such awesome spiritual experiences during your breath work and sound baths, and and you have your own live stream, and yeah. So anything you want to shout out, and I would love to have you back on in a couple weeks, however long it. Maybe we'll figure it out, and
Sure.
you have that shamanic class coming up, I know. Yep. So yeah, please plug your stuff, and yeah, I love you so much, brother.
I appreciate you so much, Pat, and I'm so thrilled to be here with you. And yeah, anybody that wants to check out what we're doing, you can head over to thepositivepineapple.org. We also have Facebook pages. You can follow me at Anthony Golden Sunshine. We have a YouTube channel, The Positive Pineapple. We're always doing all kinds of different stuff. We have in-person events, online events that we do every week. As Patrick mentioned, March 5th, we'll begin the next shamanic training level 1. I've had 4 of them so far, and that's essentially a deep dive into your being. The whole thing about shamanism is about exposing who you are at the deepest level, and that's what begins to open up our ability to help others heal. It's a really deep dive into our personal energy, understanding the energy lines of our body and our light and our life. I recommend it for anybody that's on their path and wants to begin to open up their deeper forms of energy awareness and connection with spirit. Those are fantastic. Check out tonight. I have another live stream tonight with my teacher, Zane. That's every other Wednesday. That's called Soar. Come soar with us. Tonight we'll be talking about magic and mysticism. So that should be really fun because Zane is an extremely magical, mystical guy. And I look forward to that. I think that's it. I think that's everything I need to say.
Fuck yeah, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah. See what I mean? That's it. That to me is gold. That's like, yeah, that's authenticity. That's that thing. And that's what people, I think, will draw so many people to you. It'll draw a lot of people to you because that makes you very relatable. You're not sitting here talking about like, you're not trying to be anybody but you. And that's fucking awesome.
That's what spirituality is to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Well, I love you, man. Much.
Say it again.
Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah,
I love you.
Sure. Cool. Mm-hmm. Have a blessed day.
You too. Thanks.